Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. The bar is open, the lights are on, the stools are all set right, and we're getting ready to go live. I've brought with us someone who can guide us, who can ruin our day. So, even by his own words on his own Discord, some even refer to him as God. Just really depends upon what's going on. He'll also tell you if the movies that you loved at one point in your youth really kind of suck now when you go back and watch them, like Ghoulies, when the monster comes out of the toilet, you know it's a puppet now, not like you didn't want to get on the toilet before. So who I've brought with us is the one, the only, from my favorite D&D podcast, DM Jake.
Oh, thanks, man. That's really nice.
Look, you made me a hero. I have to tell you before we get into doing all the intros, all the rest of the stuff. You made me kind of a hero to a 12-year-old.
Oh, yeah? How's that?
So I'm probably because I know the things that Tianka and Nate and everyone says, but my 12-year-old listens to hear for the roles with me.
Oh, well, in that case, we might have to clean up our language a little bit.
But he enjoys it with me. And when I was like, guess who's coming on? He's like, I don't know. Who? I said, DM Jake. He was like, what? You got DM? I was like, yeah. How about that shit?
So, oh, man. Well, that is very sweet. And I'm glad that I can provide some sort of D&D joy to people of all ages, I guess.
Well, you're making it happen. So real quick, let's go through get the bar ready for everybody else to join us. So behind me, folks, let me move the mic for a second for those of you that are watching the live. That's our sticker and a cause board. If you've got something you're supporting, you've got your own D&D campaign you're pushing for, or you've got a podcast you love, or any charitable organization, I don't care what it is, and you've got a sticker that you've made for it, go ahead and reach one out to me. Send me a message through our Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and even our email. They're all the Above the Bar podcast. Send me a message. Let me know what it is. I'll tell you where to send the sticker to, and we'll go ahead and get you up on the big board. Every week we try to have one. We didn't have one this week, but hey, we try to have one. The other thing is we got to talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor is Media by Dibs. If you feel like, and Jake will appreciate this here in a moment, if you feel like your media has been hit with a feeble mind spell, or even walked across the river Styx and lost itself and just wants to have pudding all day long, then you might want to reach out to Media by Dibs. Media by Dibs, you can find him on Facebook and Instagram, Media by Dibs. And if you go ahead and send him on LinkedIn, it's Andrew Dibble. All right. All that's done. House cleaning is done. It's time to get into
that reference there.
Our
campaign. That was fun. I like that.
Well, there was nothing better than Tianka going, pudding, happy birthday, over and over. I was like, yeah, that's great. I got to ask, because I want to make sure I understand. So Tianka is your wife?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure I got that right. At what point, just because I'm curious, have you ever you feeble-minded her?
You mean like in real life?
Well, that would be even better if you figured out how to do that.
Oh, you mean just like in the game, how many times have I cast that on her?
But you casted it on her, and then you have to live with her after that.
Yeah. Well, that was an interesting situation because with that spell, she's just a very good role player. And her character wandered into this river Styx, which is, for those who have not listened to our podcast, it's like they're down in HE double hockey sticks. And
you can say hell. It's okay.
Yeah, they're literally in hell. And the river Styx is this evil river that if you touch it, it makes your mind wipe and just go completely blank. And so her character wandered into this river to try and save her brother. And so because of that, her character got afflicted with a feeble mind. And Tianka, being the great actor and role player that she is, she just committed to the bit and fully embraced the fact that her character was mindless. And so uh, it gave us all a lot of entertainment. I had
That was
nothing to do
great.
with it. I just set the stage and she went for it.
She ran with it. It was great. I loved it. It was a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
it
So
was fun.
I'm on the last episode. For those of you who don't know, Jake runs an amazing campaign, amazing podcast here for the roles. Um, we're definitely going to probably geek out about some gear stuff because I'm curious on some things. That's another
Yes,
little bit of a gearhead
I'm
for
happy to help with
for
whatever I can.
podcasting,
Yeah.
but runs an amazing podcast. This was episode 37 or 30,
Yeah. So the season finale is 36.
36.
Yeah.
I, we've listened to them. So, and I like there were some pulls from early episodes during this final one. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to spoil it for anyone who does listen if you haven't listened to it yet, but there was some great pulls going all the way back to when they were still hadn't made it to hell yet. So just an amazing podcast, and you do
Oh, thanks
a,
so
a
much.
great job with it. It's a lot of fun.
Thank
But
you.
my question is like, and I heard it mentioned today, you guys have been doing this since 2018.
Yeah. So like about 4 years now. We all met through film and theater projects. So we are Trent's my dad and Tianka's my wife. So, but she and I met through a theater.
Wait,
And
Trent's really your dad?
yeah.
No,
Uh huh.
he looks super young. What the hell?
Yeah. That's everyone. My parents were blessed in that way. Everyone thinks that my parents are my siblings, but yeah. So we're a tight knit group. Jake and Nate and Tianka, I met all through theater and film stuff, and we wanted to do a project that. Well, we wanted to first just play D&D, and so that's what we started doing that in 2018 together, and all of us doing theater and stuff. It made D&D a lot more fun because everyone was like already super into acting, and so they weren't afraid to put on the role playing hats and just commit to their characters. So we had such a great time, and we were laughing so much while playing that we're like, we need to record this and like put this out there. And so we just we started doing that, and I think that's how a lot of D&D podcasts are born. There's many D&D podcasts, and I think people are they. It's a lot of work to run a campaign, and it takes a lot of time. And so people are probably just like, you know what, we should be recording this. Like we need to like document this and put it out in the world so that we can go back and listen to it one day. And that's really the main reason why we do it, honestly.
Well, if you guys were doing it 2018, so that's pre, everybody's into critical roles and all that stuff. You were in there early. I guess that early adopter isn't the right term because
Yeah.
I go back to my first experience with D&D was the Tom Hanks movie.
Yeah, I mean that's the crazy thing.
Oh,
Everyone
there's a
has-
movie for you.
Okay, yeah. What is it called?
The Tom Hanks Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah, I don't even know that. About
What?
that. Yeah.
I'm like completely shocked by this. That's God. If anybody's watching, remind me. God. So it's a great movie. Tom Hanks, Dungeons and Dragons. It is called Mazes and Monsters.
Mazes and Monsters. I have heard of that actually. I didn't realize that it was a play on D&D, but that makes sense.
Yes. So it's a Tom Hanks movie where, just to give you kind of what the plot of it is he's a young guy playing a wizard early, like D&D 1.
Yeah.
Cheryl, a good friend of ours, Cheryl, she has her own podcast.
Mhm.
She's like, I haven't heard of that movie. Like,
Mhm.
here's probably why, Cheryl, and for you, Jake, also. The movie came out in originally was, put it this way, it was a TV movie, and it's not even telling me the year that it came out. That'll tell you something. Like early 80s, 1982.
82. Okay.
But
That
it's
sounds like it would be a great one for Here for the Reels. Yeah.
here for the reels. That's it. And you can blame me for it because I've tried to watch it. It does not hold up. But the story is Tom Hanks plays a wizard in this campaign,
Uh-huh.
and there's been a death of one of their friends, and I believe it was a suicide,
Mhm.
and he loses his mind over it, and he's in 1982 New York City,
Mhm.
like Times Square was still like peep shows and stuff like that,
Yeah,
and traveling through the sewers trying to battle the dragon.
that sounds like a whole lot.
And the whole time he's doing it, his friends are chasing after him,
Yeah,
who realize what's going on, and they have to use what they know from the campaign to
to
try to
find him.
figure out where he could be going.
Okay. Yeah, that would be solid. I'll have to ask my dad if he's seen that. Because yeah, that would be a fun one. It sounds like it's right up our alley for what we do on the other podcast. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah,
So now you do a lot of voices.
yeah,
You do a
yeah.
ton of voices. Where does where does all that draw from?
Um, it draws from a lifetime of loving movies and TV and theater and doing a lot of acting and film production and theater and playing lots of characters and also just playing a lot of video games. And so I love video games. And so in video games, they have amazing voice acting, right? And so uh, I draw a lot of that from the types of characters and monsters and bad guys and love interests that I experience through my own like favorite games, and I don't know. Yeah, I do pick the voices beforehand. Like I make sure like if there's an episode and there's a bunch of characters, I know what they're gonna sound like. Otherwise, I'm just shooting off the cuff. But yeah, it's kind of crazy how
How
many
do you
voices you do.
how do you keep them in order though? Like that's my biggest thing is I hear them and you're having like, and obviously now that I know that Trent's your dad,
Yeah,
he's gotten you to have entire conversations with yourself with
right.
two NPCs. How do
Uh
you
huh.
do that back and forth?
Some of it's written. Some of it I like write what these NPCs are saying so that they deliver the correct information to the group. But then sometimes I I don't know. I think I just know what each character would want, and I just play them. But it makes me sound like a crazy person. I just
Well,
like
well, I
go
mean,
on a
I think we all are.
podcast and yeah, and just like have conversations with myself while there's like four other people there. But no, just sometimes it's necessary because like when you are playing like four or five characters, like sometimes two of those are gonna interact with each other, and I try to avoid that where I can. But yeah, I try to keep the players like the mostly involved with the dialogue. But yeah, lots of voices. It's sometimes I write down what they sound like so I don't forget, but then sometimes I just remember.
Yeah, I would absolutely. And one of the funniest people I know, Keith Byrd, just jumped on. He says, "That's practice, baby. You got to see me walking around my house pretending like I'm Morgan Freeman." He does it too. He does like this entire Morgan Freeman thing.
I
It's
gotta hear that. That's
he
audio chocolate is what they call that.
he. I'll have to send you his Instagram because he's on Instagram also. I even wore my because I didn't have a D&D shirt. I used to have a bunch of them from
Uh
back when Loot Crate was actually cool.
huh.
You remember when Loot Crate was like cool and like before you knew that everything was stuff that was going to the Five Below store? And
Yeah, yeah. I never got it, but I that's kind of I gathered that. Yeah.
I used to have an actual, I wish I could find it. I had a silicone 20-sided die
Uh huh.
ice maker.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was
I've
like,
seen those online. Yeah.
and I got to find another one. But yeah, Keith does that one. So so let's kind of roll back to the beginning of Avernus and the entire campaign. Where did I mean? Again, I'm fascinated by the entire thing. I love D&D. I've always grew up listening to stuff and watching things. I got into Magic the Gathering.
Oh
Love to
yeah.
play the cards. Love the artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all that's always like I enjoyed the original Hobbit animated movies. If you've
Oh
never
yeah.
seen that, that's like
I
some of the
have to.
best.
Yeah.
Like when you, especially when you try to explain to my kids, I'm like, that's hand drawn.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy people sat down and piece by piece put that whole thing together for a 2.5 hour movie.
Oh
That
yeah. And
So
my dad would show me all that stuff when I was growing up too, and explain the exact same thing like you were doing to your kid. Like, this is animation, real animation. Yeah.
yeah, this is legit. This wasn't like and today I think the only people that still do it is Trey Parker and
Matt Stone. Yeah.
Matt Stowe. That's like they're like the last of the hand drawn animation that really comes on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really impressive what those guys have been able to do. I'm a big fan of theirs as well.
And I will have to tell everyone that Jake lives in what I think is the most beautiful state in the entire country.
Yeah, you
I
like Utah, huh?
I I drove through Utah back in 2001 going
Oh
cross
wow.
country, and I was leaving Camp Pendleton and drove through, and it was the only state I've ever been in where at one point in April I had my air conditioning on or my windows down, and I
Hmm.
made a left turn, and I'm going, that's a hell of a lot of snow out here.
Yeah, it can be sometimes for sure.
Like
Yeah,
straight one extreme to the other.
it
Cheryl
is.
said
Yeah,
Cheryl says you got to be something to watch the original Hobbit cartoon. That cartoon was amazing.
yeah. I'm sure if you're on something, it's more enjoyable, but it's also just enjoyable on a good old regular day. I love that movie.
Like knowing right now that Trent is your dad
Yeah, I'm
makes
surprised I blow your mind with that.
like really makes the dick jokes different.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's interesting when my dad, who plays a character in the podcast, his character is like working on a romance, and then I have to play the character who he's romancing, and so it's this
Yes,
awkward.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's just like doing a romance conversation with my dad, and it provides for some really entertaining content. I will tell you that, right? It's definitely awkward for all of us.
Oh, that's so great. So you're putting all these pieces together, and now when this is done, is do we have another campaign that's coming? Are we going to kind of delay this? What do we got going on?
Yeah, well, have you listened to season one? But just
I don't
curious.
know. I never. So that's the whole thing is
Yeah.
I skipped season one, not realizing it till I
Hmm.
was. I bet you I was multiple episodes into season two,
Hmm.
not realizing it till I heard sidebar conversations
Yeah.
about characters, and then going,
Who
oh,
is this?
what are they talking about? And then realizing there was another season.
Yeah. So you jumped in at season two, which is Descent into Avernus, um, and that's its own standalone story. You do not need to have heard season one to jump into season two, but there is a season one, and that's a completely original story written by myself, with an original homebrew world, and it's yeah, all of our cast members are playing different characters, and that's a longer season. It's 54 episodes for season one, and season two we just wrapped up has 36. Um, but if you like what we've done in season two, go back and listen. I really I love them both, but I actually have the biggest soft spot for season one just because
Well,
I
you created that.
yeah, and so yeah, Descent into Avernus for season two is a published written adventure by Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes D&D. And so I needed a break from writing so much for season one. So I'm like, I'm gonna pick one of the adventures that already exists, and just buy the book and then run the adventure out of the book. And so that's the difference. But equal they stand on their own, and you can listen to them in any order. So yeah.
Now, for anybody who's out there that's listening to this, who again either grew up with D and D or we are seeing this resurgence in it. What are some of the things that you would say? This is what you know. Do you need to buy D&D Beyond?
Mm-hmm.
And which my son, who's 18, getting ready to go to college, he has D&D Beyond and has he spent the money on D&D Beyond
Sure,
bef-
yeah.
before it was bought out by
Uh-huh.
Wizards of the Coast. And
Recently, yeah.
I'm looking at I'm like, son, you spent how much?
Yeah.
Like like that thing can be really silly, but it does have a nice feature where you can share it with
Yeah.
other people if they're doing your campaign. But what are some of the things that you would suggest to somebody who's like, "Hey, I want to get into this,"
Sure.
besides destroying the Monopoly game, stealing all the dice?
uh, if you just want to get into D&D, you really don't need to buy much. I would recommend. It's not. I'm not saying that you're not going to buy a lot because you can go down a slippery slope pretty easily. But all you really need is the three core books, which is the Player's Handbook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual. Those are the three core rule books that they offer, and they often sell those in a bundle. You need some dice, but technically you could roll dice online. You don't actually need to buy them because they have tons of like dice rollers that you can just Google that and do it that way. But there is something to be said about physically rolling the dice that you can't really like take away because that's
Yeah, there's
just
something
such a
to that.
It's a core part of D&D that's just fun and like it's like the tradition. So we all have our dice addictions. We have tons of dice. But
What's your
just
favorite set?
my favorite set. I wish I had it here so I could show you, but I have some metal dice. They're metal and they're yellow and they have little gold numbers, and that's my favorite set. I love them. And everyone has their favorite set, and dice addiction is real, so be careful. But yeah, you just need the three core rule books, and there's tons of articles online too about like how to get into D&D and what to buy, and like just like you can Google and do a bunch of research online and find out what you need. But really, from me, that's it. You need the core rule books. You need an imagination and some character sheets, which you can print online for free as well.
And even those now, because what's the you have a sponsor, and your sponsor is who?
Yeah, we have a couple. We have one called Reroll, which is an app where you can like design your characters and you have like a little image of them, which is cool. And then we have one called Card King Pro, and they do really big dice bags. So
Huge, crazy dice bags.
yeah, really cool. We've had rotating sponsors and all just for like random D&D accessories, basically.
So there's plenty of things out there. What do you think? You
Yeah.
know, for people that are looking to get into D&D. I mean, obviously, we know that Here for the Rolls is the show you should start with, so you can hear how to play it and how to be a DM and everything. But what do you think are some of the things that if you're looking to get into this and you're looking at, you know, because I think it can be very family oriented, like you
Oh yeah.
said, your dad's doing it with you, your wife's doing it there with you, you've
Mm-hmm.
got two super close friends that are in there doing it with you, so it can be a very family oriented kind of a thing to get into.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you folks that if your son is your DM, like, which is odd that's why I thought that was funny. My son and I were doing a campaign and he was my DM.
Yeah.
In the very first random campaign, he killed me.
Oh man.
And I was like, really?
Yeah, he's telling you something with
I mean,
that.
there's something to that. He's like,
Yeah.
Dad, these were like super easy. You should have been able. I'm like, I'm a halfling rogue.
That's a power move. You have yeah, he's thrown the gauntlet down on you with that one.
So, but what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes people make going into it, or expectations they shouldn't have?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, like you said, if you a lot of people that are wanting to learn D&D, they will hop in and listen to podcasts and watch Critical Role and watch a bunch of videos online. So I think the biggest mistake that people make is they watch these like high profile D&D people and um, content creators that like Critical Role is the best example. A lot of people will watch Critical Role, who is a cast of very well paid, like high caliber voice actors for movies, video games,
All kinds of stuff.
and they immediately think that's how D&D is going to be. And what that does is it puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on your DM because nobody is Matt Mercer. I think you need to, people that come in like need to realize that the people you play with is going to determine the feel of your game. And if you're the DM, it's up to you to set that tone. And you don't need to be Matt Mercer. You don't need to be a superstar. You just need to set up a game that is open and positive and fun feeling. Because the player's fun should be the first priority, not the numbers and getting every single rule right. And they tell you that in the book. They say like the spirit of the game always trumps the word of rule in these games. So go in with the intent of having fun rather than trying to be exactly something. That would be my advice, but yeah.
And you mentioned Critical Roles, which, they have a TV series, they have all the, the big name sponsors and all that.
Yeah.
I look at Critical Roles as the learning cursive of D&D Podcast.
Uh-huh.
Only a little bit of people still remember how to do it, and every time you went to learn it when you were a kid, it was a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like you can't be at their level where, they go off onto things, and I tell people this all the time. If you really enjoy it, it's very entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But that level of, like you said, these are people that when they're like, hey, the guy who plays this character, Grog isn't going to be here today. Somebody else will do his stuff. He's currently recording the next show you're going to watch on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, oh, like the girl who played Pike. She was off the show for months.
Mm-hmm.
So
Ashley
remember that,
Johnson,
folks.
right?
You don't have to do voices. It's fun if you can, unless you're going to do a podcast. Most of us
right. Yeah.
Most of us play and we're like, I'm going to go here and do this. And this is my voice. And this is what my character sounds like. Just like me.
Yeah. As long as everybody's comfortable and feels safe and like they're in a positive environment, I think that's the most important thing to get started.
Now, do you have your own house rules? Like, I know that's a big D&D thing is here's the house rules when it comes to this or it comes to that. Do you have any house rules that you go by?
We have a couple, yeah. One that comes to mind is with healing potions. Usually in D&D, that in order to use a healing potion, it's like a free action, which means it doesn't take any of your actions or bonus actions on your turn. But I make it require a bonus action to use a healing potion because healing potions can be really overpowered sometimes, and I like to keep it a little more balanced in that regard. So if you've never played D&D, you're like, what is he talking about? But if you have, that's kind of, you'll know that's what that means in terms of our house rules. So yeah.
Somebody said, move your face a little closer to the mic here, Jake.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm assuming this is one of your fans, Doan, over on Twitch. Is a little bit closer, a little hard to hear you. Let me see if I turn you up a little bit on my end. Let's see how that sounds. Give me a little bit of talk there.
Yeah, how's that, guys? Was that a little better?
Think that might let us know here. How about so we've got the campaign, we got everything. You guys been going on this. Now we're talking about a second show.
Yeah.
Like, where did that even come from? Where you're like, Keith, wow, he said you're a maniac. You're gonna make him take an extra action. You're a maniac.
Yeah.
So where did you like decide like, screw it, I'm gonna do another show?
It's because when we would get together for our weekly recording night on Saturday night, D&D night, we would often end up talking about, like, a lot of the times, like, when we're not recording, we'll just hang out and just have some drinks and just hang out and talk. And we often would bring up movies that we had seen that not everybody else had seen, and then we're like, we need to do a podcast where we like review and rate these movies, and so that's how it was born. We kept talking about movies, and we thought we should just do it on air instead. And we also wanted a podcast that was easier to run and maintain than a D&D podcast, which it is. Here for the Reels is a lot easier to maintain and run than Here for the Rolls.
Well, it's not all on you.
Yeah, it's a lot of work in terms of the writing, the actual recording, performing, and then the editing is what takes the longest. That takes me like a whole week to get an episode cut and layered with sound effects and music and all the polishing on everybody's voices. Like,
see, that's so different from what I do. Like what we're doing right now, this will go out exactly as it is.
That's what I want. That's what Here for the Roll or Reels is we just record it. I put a few filters on and I send it out. Yeah. And that is so much nicer.
Keith says editing is the devil.
It
really is. I mean, I started off when I started this show, I wasn't going live, and I would bring it in, and then I would add the open, and I would add the close, and if I saw something, and we call him the Podfather, who runs our network, the Earplug Podcast Network. And
I love that.
The Podfather. Yeah. DW and I are talking, and he's had several shows, a lot of successful podcasts, and he's like, "Why are you doing that?" So, well, I want it to be like. He's like, "That's stupid." He's like, "Stop editing it. No one cares if you paused or made a mistake. They actually prefer it." I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, with a natural interview podcast like this, that makes complete sense, and that's what's nice about these. But with D&D, there's often lots of pauses where people have to do math and add up their numbers, and they take forever figuring out what they're going to do on their turn, and so there's tons of pauses that like you just can't leave in. Like I shave off 30 to 40 minutes off every episode.
Really? I mean, that's a ton of time you're cutting out of there.
Yes, and it's dead time, and so it makes for a much better show for the D&D podcast. But man, yeah, it's time consuming and it's work intensive for sure.
So anybody who's looking to start a D&D podcast, would you be like, I mean,
make your episodes short. Don't like that's for season 3. And you asked me about season 3, and I kind of
well, I'm gonna be on season 3. I'm just throwing my name into it, whether I show up or not. I'm just throwing it out there.
Sure, because we would love to have you.
Because we did the TikTok thing with the whatever I ended up. What was it? Human Warlock.
Yeah, I saw that on Discord. Yeah, we would love to have you come guest. That'd be.
It'll be a horrible situation because there'll be no voices other than this one.
That's okay.
It'll be just this voice,
like we just talked about. As long as you're being yourself and having fun.
And then Trent and I are just gonna have to talk and be like, "Dude, what's your skincare plan? Like, because you're like way too young to be the father of this gentleman. So we're gonna have to talk here for a moment."
He works out a lot, eats well. That's pretty much it.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I just blew my knee out on Sunday. I did 20 years in the Marine Corps, thinking I was still in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
I blew my knee out on Sunday.
Oh, that's terrible. But man, 20 years in the Marines, that is cool.
Yeah, that's how I made it this far. See, now again, Keith is listening to us, and he does a ton of voice. See, I could see you doing that, Keith. You would play like the perfect. See, he's the guy with some of the silly voices he can do that like some kind of a rogue, half out of it kind of a voice where like
that. Maybe a bard.
Yeah, or it's even better. Like, is there such thing as an orc bard?
Yeah, you could do an orc.
Like that would be a great one.
That's what my dad plays in season 1.
Is an orc bard?
A half orc bard. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Now I have to definitely go back and listen to it.
He raps and he does hip hop for his bardic style.
That's what I'm saying, Keith. You'd be a drunk You'd be a drunk word bard. That would be so amazing.
That sounds cool.
Or even better, a minotaur. I don't even know if they have stats for that. To be a minotaur bard. Yeah. They barely talk. They just grunt a lot.
Yeah, pretty much anything you can think of. They have stats or the means to build stats for anything.
So we've got this done, and you're going into. So I want to combine the two because, again, like I said, I think the stuff that you guys do is so much fun to listen to.
Oh,
I'm looking forward
thanks.
to listening to some Here for the Rolls. I got to finish. I got to finish this episode so
Hmm.
that I know what happens
Yeah.
uh, to Cake Man and everything else that's going on. So, what is going on as far as give us kind of the layout for Here for the Reels, the other side to this? Is it you guys are watching the movie together? Everybody's got to watch it beforehand. What's the process?
Yeah. So we chose to all, since we all live, you know, relatively close to each other. I think the furthest distance is like an hour. Um, we chose for the podcast to actually physically meet up and watch the movies together because it brings a different energy to when we all watch it together. Just like the laughing and the comments and the joy of experiencing that together is like the core of that podcast, and so that's how we do it. And then right when we finish, we walk downstairs, get on mic, and while it's fresh in our mind, and we all take notes while we watch, and so then we deliver our scores for the movies on the podcast. So it all happens in one night.
One fail swoop. So
Yeah.
what are some of the movies you've done so far?
We've done Grease 2. That was our first one. That was
That's
my
just
pick.
bad.
Yeah,
That's
we rotate picks too. Like we take turns choosing the movies. I picked the first one because I loved Grease and Grease 2 growing up, and Grease 2 has a reputation for being the redheaded stepchild of the musical world, and for good reason. But I just love it for some reason, and so
I understand that.
yeah. And we got on and we reviewed it, and it didn't get a good score, but man, we had a great time. We had a great time watching it because even when the movies suck, we love. It's so entertaining, like to
The
watch
suck
them
is the
together.
entertainment at this point.
Yes, that's kind of the main sort of idea of that podcast. Yeah.
Is how much can this suck instead? See, I'm a big Green Lantern fan,
Okay.
and I get everybody busts my chop about that movie, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, and I'm always like, go back and watch it. There's a lot of great things that could have happened after this movie.
Mm-hmm.
They just chose to do nothing with it.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the Ryan?
Absolutely, the Ryan Reynolds. Like, have you ever
Okay.
watched that movie?
I never did. No, I'm not much of a superhero guy, but
Oh no, see, you can't see it, but the back half of my
yeah.
studio, the name of the show, if you didn't figure it out, above the bar podcast is all my
Uh huh.
equipment is sitting above my bar.
I love that. I was gonna say I really love the whole vibe. I like the idea of just like sitting up at a bar, and I should have got a beer. That's what I. Yeah.
I mean, I got
Oh, there you go. What you drinking there?
so
Some Helderberg whiskey.
yeah, this is rye whiskey.
Oh man, I wish I was.
Yeah,
I wish I
look,
was sitting with you. We could share
it would
one.
be well if you ever get to the right coast, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, this is some friends of ours, New Scotland Spirits, and they're big. They had a whole thing where the actual country of Scotland's distilling
Hmm.
sued them
Oh, okay.
because they're New Scotland, and they were like, oh, "You can't make New Scotland. We're the only Scotland," and they won.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, my
Wow.
buddy Jim, what's up, Jim?
Jim
There's
O'Reilly.
a Jim O'Reilly is a phenomenal artist. There's somebody who could draw your characters for you. Jim and I.
Some
Here's a great
Spawn
one.
art right there.
Jim and I met. Craziest story. Never told this story on air, so you get to hear a new story. So
I'm here for it.
so Jim and I met. I go to NYCC every year, New York City Comic Con.
Oh, nice.
I was with my son, who's now turning 18. He was 8, maybe 9 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't start, Jim. You do not suck. So Jim's like, nah, I suck. So we're standing in line waiting for a cab to go back to the train station to come back up to Albany.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this guy standing next to us, and he's doing sketch cards.
Yeah.
And he looks at my son and goes, here. Probably, I bet you it was 2 years later, I'm online, and somebody contacts me and goes, hey, man, do you remember me? I was the guy that was right next to you. Well, it's Jim.
Oh, nice.
and we've stayed in contact ever since then. And it was just the wildest thing. He's a hell of an artist. Don't let him tell you he's not. But
That's so cool. That's
so
really
so
awesome.
Jim's hanging out. But yeah, so the New Scotland guys got drunk. And this is one of the things, and I know I'm kind of bouncing between the movies and D&D and how important.
Yeah.
I think they tie so well in together
Mm-hmm.
because there's never been a great D&D movie.
Not yet.
There's the Wayans brother one with
Yeah.
one of the Wayans that what was that 2002 or something like that.
Oh, it's a bad movie. That one is painfully bad. Yeah.
And I remember when it was coming out, I'm like, fucking D&D movie. We're gonna rock this.
Yeah. Same. I was a kid. I was 10 years old, and I was pumped for it. And even as a 10-year-old, I was like, "This sucks."
Yeah, it was like this really isn't good at all.
Yeah.
So, we're hoping to have some, but there's the other side to it is D&D and drinking.
Yeah.
I tried to get Albany Distilling, the owner of Albany Distilling does a campaign to this day every Wednesday or Thursday night at the
that's
distillery.
Do they like stream it?
No, it's just him and some buddies
Okay.
hanging out. And he's been doing it for years. He plays some other online game he was telling me, or some game. It's an 8-bit that's been around forever. That's whoever created. He's like, it's considered like some super hard game, and it's never been completed. The guy who created it like made this game that's just like ridiculously hard, and he's explaining it to me. I tried to get him to. I told now one D&D guy who loves D&D to a guy who really enjoys D&D.
Mm-hmm.
If you saw a bottle of whatever spirit that had a 20-sided die in the bottom of the bottle, would you buy it?
Of course. That sounds awesome. Yeah. I'd go to the liquor store and be like, "What? What is this? I'm in." Yeah.
Doesn't it? And I told him, I said, you know what's so cool about it is you do it and you get the die in the bottom of it. Nobody cares if it comes out. You're doing it like mezcal with the worm.
Right.
And people are going to sit there. If you don't finish the bottle, you're still going to sit there and be like, I got to roll my 20. You're going to spin the bottle and see where it lands.
Yeah. And then that tells you also that the liquor was created by people who love the game, so that it's probably a good drink to drink while you're playing D&D. And that's,
See?
that's why I would get it. Yeah.
And you can get hammered and play D&D.
That helps.
It gets the creative juices flowing. It gets
Yeah,
everybody
just-
going.
Absolutely.
So now I know I'm bouncing because I love, like I keep saying,
No,
I have
yeah.
so much fun with the stuff you guys do. And I want to go back to Here for the Reels because that's the newest project you've got going on, and the newest things.
Mm-hmm.
When you presented that to everyone, like I know you said you guys talk about this, but you're telling these folks that are already spending, every other week, hour and a half, 2 hours, locked up in your basement, inability to get out,
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, I want you to come back to the house again.
They do call me the dungeon master for a reason.
Oh, wait a sec. That button. That's what
There
I
it
was
is.
looking for. There it was.
All right. I'm so glad you had that.
That little rim shot for you.
Yeah.
But presenting it to these folks, because like I do my show, it's me. I'm not able to have others around. We'll see you, Jim. Thanks for popping in, brother. But what was that presentation? Was there any hesitation? I mean, there's you and Tianka, and was she like, "Babe, we've still got whole lives to do here. You want to do another show?" How was that presented to everybody?
I think I was the one that needed to be convinced because
Really?
I was already doing all the work. And so these guys wanted to do like, "Guys, let's do a movie podcast." And I'm like, I mean, yes, guys, I'm open to it. Like, it sounds fun, but I can't. We need to set this up in a format where I don't need to do editing. Like, that was like my only condition, just because with both of the podcasts, it would have it'd be a full-time job at that point, and I have a regular full-time job, so I couldn't do
Well,
that.
can I ask what that is? I'm curious.
Yeah, I'm a video producer for a software company here in Salt Lake City, and so I make marketing videos and stuff.
Oh, nice.
And they have a podcast as well, and I help them with that, and so all of it's kind of like my in the wheelhouse of the things I love, but too much is too much, And so I'm like, with Here for the Reels, a second show, it's just got to be like nice, concise, quick, very low pressure, super easy to just throw an intro and release it into the world. And so we made it work. And now, to circle back to your other question, what's next? Now that season 2's done, so I'm going to be writing season 3 for a while.
Oh, you're going back to writing this one.
We're going back to the season 1 world.
Okay.
My homebrew world. But
Same characters?
No. Well, the same characters will be in the world and like part of the story, but it'll be new characters. But we're going to order episodes for that as well. But in the meantime, we're going to only focus on Here for the Reels while I'm writing for season 3. So be ready to come listen to a lot of movie reviews.
We will be doing that. We will definitely be doing a lot of movie reviews. Now, what about if somebody wanted to suggest? Like, are you going to take suggestions for movies? Like, I know I throw out Mazes and Monsters, but is that something you guys are looking to do? Because you have your Discord, which you got a great community over there. Yeah. I'm in it. That's why it's great. I'm just going to throw that out there. Great,
yeah.
Are you taking suggestions?
Right now, not really. Well, everything that people suggest us, like I'm keeping track of that and remembering just so we have a list. But right now, since we're just getting started, we all have like a few good movies that we know we want to hit. And so we're going around taking turns getting our big ones out of the way. And so after we've done a bunch and we're like, okay, I don't really have anything for this week. Let's go see what the listeners say. And so it'll be kind of in our repository. But right now, we all just have some movies from our childhoods that we really want to review. So
Now, what can you tell me what the movie from the other Jake was?
Yeah, his was Future World. It was, Westworld, the show on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
So that show is based on an old movie called Westworld, and so
yes, absolutely, Charlton Heston,
right?
Or not Charlton Heston. God, who was in that movie? Bald-headed, maybe it was Heston.
Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner, thank you.
And Future World is by the same people, and it's in that same universe, but it's instead of going to Westworld, they're like going to Future World. This like whole like dystopian sci-fi future world, and that was his pick. Yeah,
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm just curious. Like, can we go through everybody's movies? Like, I'm curious what Nate. What was Nate's?
So Nate's, we're actually doing this weekend his first movie. I'm gonna pull up our lists just so I can talk about all of them. But
because I think some of this gets everybody kind of more interested here, because I'm going to throw one at you. Like, I'm curious if you watched. I know your dad probably seen it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So his first movie is going to be this Saturday, and he's doing The Page Master. It's an animated movie from 90s with Macaulay Culkin and Christopher Lloyd.
Really?
Back to the Future fame. And
I think anything Macaulay Culkin like that is so creepy.
Yeah, it is eerie. Yeah, it's eerie. I remember watching it as a kid and liking it, so that too. But we did Teen Wolf. That was my pick as well.
Teen Wolf's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, Teen Wolf with, well, not so much according to our reviews.
Really?
That's what I thought. I really liked Teen Wolf growing up, but it didn't hold up very well.
Yeah. Wow, because that movie like spawned an industry. There were sequels. There was, people physically getting on top of cars. I remember that, like getting on top of cars to do the surf. Like that was a whole thing.
it grossed 80 million on a 1.2 million dollar budget, so it did fantastically well, and it was very popular, but it did not review well, and it's not a great movie. It's I think it's just because no one had seen anything like that in
Okay.
1985. Maybe I don't know.
Oh God, is that
And
what
it
year
had the
that was?
star
Two
power.
85.
Yeah, it had the star power of Michael J. Fox,
Yup.
and it had a lot going for it. But as a story, it was pretty weak in terms of like how we viewed it when we went and reviewed it on the podcast.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
that's a tough one. How about Tienka?
Yeah. So she picked Xanadu. Um,
That's
with
a
Olivia
horrible movie.
Newton-John. It is. It is a fever dream of a film.
Like
But
there's no worrying about if it held up. It didn't hold up when it was created.
nope. But it was a guilty pleasure movie of hers. Well, not guilty at all, actually. Of hers growing up, she just loved it growing up, and so she was curious to see how it would hold up, and so that's the whole basis of the show. Yeah, it's just like
Oh God, I'll tell you another good one that
yeah.
I recently watched. That I do you remember? You wouldn't remember. Do you remember Up All Night with Rhonda? You ever heard of that? Up All Night with Rhonda. So
Mm-mm.
USA Channel used to do Up All Night with Rhonda, and Rhonda was this woman, scantily clad, and she would do movie reviews. That's
Mm-hmm.
how Trauma films really got big. Was they would run Trauma films on Up All Night, Toxic Avenger, Samurai Cop, all those movies with Uncle Lloyd, and that's how they got huge. Was they would run all those films.
Oh, that's awesome.
And there was one that I loved that was at the height of all the Star Wars and space movies
Mm-hmm.
called Ice Pirates.
Ice Pirates. My dad has that on his list.
Awesome!
Yes.
No,
Yes.
no,
My dad has that
so
on his
great.
list. Yep.
Space was it? It was space herpes. Space herpes. Ha ha!
You
Wait
don't want
till
to get that. You don't want to get space herpes.
wait till you find out what space herpes is. Um, that movie has
Yeah.
like so many like just like references where you're like, really,
Yeah.
this is horrible.
Well,
Like,
that episode
there's a
will be
jive
dedicated.
robot.
Oh, wow.
Yep, he paints the whole robot black and teaches him to speak jive.
That's so bad.
It's so 80s. Like everything about it is so 80s.
Yeah.
God, who else? It's actually I'm almost positive the one actor. I think Lyle Alzado is in it. Who Lyle Alzado is also, somebody will double check me here, is who played Sloth in Goonies.
Wow. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I'm almost positive, without almost no doubt in my mind, that he's in there. Yeah, it's such a great bad movie.
Well, that episode will be dedicated to you, man.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yep.
So we've got the campaign coming up. We got the movies coming up.
Mm-hmm.
That's so great that on the list is Space Ice Pirates. That's so great to
Yeah.
me. Oh,
Yeah, we're excited to just like, I don't know, it gives us something to do and a project to work on and a reason to get together and spend time together, and that's really the main reason why we do it all. So
now
yeah,
I do want to talk a little geek out on some equipment, because you're,
let's do it.
especially as soon as I heard you say that you're also a movie editing guy and you know how to do those things. I can't do that to save my life. Like, Audacity is my friend.
Yeah,
Like, if I have to,
Audacity's great.
like, if you're like me, folks, and you just are like, I just need to get rid of this one piece
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to spend money. Don't spend the money on Pro. Like, you don't need to.
Yeah, Audacity's a solid product.
Just a cheapie. But so, do you use any voice changing stuff? I was listening today and I heard your voice change for a character, and I was like, he's got to be using some voice changing things.
Yeah, I do that all in post production. I don't do any of that the night of.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll change my voice a little bit in the mic while I'm talking so that it provides itself well to the filters that I use later. And
No
yeah, I apply those
shit.
filters later in editing. Yeah. I need to figure out how I can get like set it up so that I can do it like live because that would be fun and it would save me time. But
Well, I was going to ask you if you run a board during the show. I've seen your setup before because, folks, if you go on the Instagram, look up here for the reels, you'll find Jake. There's plenty of videos of him and the entire the other Jake, Trent, Tianka, and they
yeah.
putting the show on. I highly recommend you go and check them out. But I was going to ask you, like, do you run a board, anything to be able to change your voice?
Nope, I don't run anything like that just because like I can't. Like I have to run the game. I have to run D&D. So I have to make our actual podcast setup like pretty much I need to have it where we can just hit play and go, and then I can just focus on the books and the stat blocks and the grid with everybody's characters, and like, so running the game itself is like a lot of work, and then when you put podcasting on top of that, it's like a lot of work. So I try to minimize it where I can and just do all of the fancy stuff and editing after the fact. So
like
you weren't out, yeah.
You weren't kidding when you said it's a whole lot of extra work to do it. Like I feel like I'm such a half-ass.
No,
like I'm so half-assing
smart. You just work smarter, not harder.
Like I'm sitting here thinking to myself, and I wanted to do a D&D podcast. I was talking, like I said, my son puts a campaign on with his friends. They do 3 hours 2 times a week, and they're going at it. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we'll do this. And I'm listening to you. I'm like, fuck that. I'm not going through all that shit.
It's a lot. But that's why I, again, keep the episodes shorter. Like maybe try and keep them like an hour long, so that the editing is, you're not having to scrub through 2.5 hours of audio.
Well, I think that's a perfect number. 1 hour for something like that. Like I said, I listen to Critical Roles when your guy, like, I'll be honest, when your guys' show isn't, I can't pull it up. I listen to you guys. I listen to Dungeons and Daddies because that shit's hilarious. Yeah. I think you're required to listen to Adventure Zone if you listen to the others.
What I've heard. Yeah.
Like, it's part of the requirements. You have to listen to that. And when everybody else is on hiatus, there's about 7,000 hours of Critical Roles.
It's so much. Those guys are amazing, but it's too much content. Like,
thank you.
3-4 hour episodes, like, and there's hundreds of, like, 200, and I'm just like, guys, I'm sorry, but like the barrier to entry is just too high for me at this point to get into Critical Role.
Yeah, I don't even like I started into it and I thought I was at the beginning, and then realized I wasn't, and I'm like, I'm in it.
Yeah,
this is my spot. I'm just gonna keep going.
But there are people out there that have listened to every minute of Critical Role that I know, which is like, I can see why, because again, they're high quality storytellers. Right. They're amazing at what they do, but it's just a huge commitment to get in.
Yeah, you're not just stepping. Go watch the animated.
Yeah, for a really brief sort of like summary of their campaign, like, but also with really cool animation too.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Any thoughts on animation for Here for the Roles?
Oh, man, we would love that. We have thought of it because Tianko is such a great artist. She could make all the assets. But if we did that, we would really need to think about like sending it to an animation house. And at that point, it would get real expensive.
Gets into real money at that point.
Real money. And so if we ever wanted to do that, I think our podcast would need to reach a level of popularity that it has not reached yet to justify that,
Well, you guys are what, 20,000 followers?
Well,
I thought I saw that.
Social media.
I think it's like your social media or
we have like 3,000-4,000 or something on like Instagram.
Where did I see 20,000? I thought I saw 20,000.
Oh, somewhere. We got 20. I think we hit 20,000 total downloads.
Maybe that was what I saw.
The number. Like earlier this year, we hit 20,000 total downloads, which is like
still awesome.
It's a modest number, but it's also like grateful to have that many. Grateful that people are actually listening. Some people, yeah.
Bro, this is episode 127, and I'm at like just short of 4,000.
Yeah.
Listen to me. You're doing good.
Oh, thanks, man.
You
Well,
got
your show seems awesome too, and I will plug it and do what I can to help you out.
well. We definitely appreciate it. We're getting ready here. We're gonna get ready to close the bar up.
Hmm.
Uh, we're at that mark. So going forward, so we've got here for the rolls.
Hmm.
Plenty of back episodes to go listen to that. So counting
Hmm.
the two of them together, we're at what, 93,
About
94?
90 even for episode or seasons 1 and 2, but we do have a few like holiday episodes sprinkled in there, and so we're close to 100.
So close to
Yeah.
100. You have your Patreon. You can
Yep.
go listen to Tiny Hut.
Tiny Hut Talk. Yeah, that's our bonus after show that we have on, just to incentivize people to participate more and to donate to the podcast if they so desire. Yeah.
And that's something people need to understand. Those of us that are doing podcasts and listening, we're looking like if you were to look around my house, there's a
Hmm.
lot. I have a lot of gear. Zoom and between Zoom audio and
Hmm.
Audio Technica, I'm paying for somebody's braces.
Hmm.
Like I have spent a little bit of coin to these people.
It's an investment.
It really is. So we're all
Hmm.
doing it, hoping to get to that next level. So make sure you check out any merch. I mean, you guys got some nice sweatshirts. Like who did all your design? Is that all Tianka that did all
My
that?
dad. My
Oh,
dad
your
is a
dad.
graphic designer, and Tienka's the artist. So we have a whole team of people that can do stuff, which is fun.
Do you see this look on my face?
Yeah.
I'm one guy who's trying to figure out how to do all. Like if it
I
wasn't for
was
Canva, I'd be
Canva's
shit.
awesome.
Like I'd be a shithead. Like
Well,
that thing saves my ass.
you're doing a great job, and I respect the fact that you just like you started this up all by yourself, and yeah, it's cool.
I've been saved by 12-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 20-some-year-old daughters, and friends out in Texas who are like, you could do this. And I'm like, show me how to do it.
Yeah,
Here's how
well,
you do it.
podcaster to podcaster, like if you ever, you know where to reach me. Like if you ever need if you ever have questions, I'm happy to help.
That's all. Yeah. And that's another part of this whole entire community. When you get
Hmm.
into it, you start meeting other podcasters and you're like, hey, man, I could help you with. Do, we have a friend who just started a show called Pathed, Pathed, and
Hmm.
it's a faith-based podcast.
Hmm.
And she does each episode she tells somebody's story. She reached out. She's helping me do my website. I know nothing about website design, and she does like real ones, not like Firefly,
Yeah.
like real ones.
Hmm.
And she's helping me do it. And I'm like, she's like, yeah, I'm doing a show. I'm like, will you do my opener? Will you record my opener? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So like I voiced her open and close,
Oh, that's
put
cool.
put the music to it, the whole 9 yards.
That's
Because
awesome.
I mean, the silky smooth sounds of this voice.
It
You
is a
gotta.
nice radio voice you got there, man. It's deep. It's rich.
I have a face for radio.
That's my boss at my actual job was in radio for 30 years, and he says that all the time. That's funny.
Got a face for radio. So anywhere to find some of this merch that like people could pick it up.
We don't have a store or anything, but if you follow us on Instagram, it's just @_ here for the rolls. You can see us wearing some of it. Like you can just shoot us a message and be like, "Hey, where can I get one of these shirts?" And like if somebody really wanted one to the point where they put in the effort to do that, like you just pay the shipping and we'll send you the shirt. Like
I'm gonna hook you up after this. I'm gonna hook you up.
I'm gonna hook you up. Yeah, I will. I'll send you some stuff, and the more people we have like wearing our stuff, like that's awesome. Like I want.
Well, guess what? You get all my guests after this. You're gonna give me an address and you're gonna give me a shirt size, and
Yeah.
I send out. I love the baseball style T-shirts,
Yeah.
and
Okay. Yeah.
because softball, beer league softball, the Above the Bar podcast ties it all together.
I
In my
love it.
opinion,
Yeah.
it all works. And you get to wear my face on
That's
your
a
shirt.
wonderful thing.
I mean, how lucky? I mean, there's a lot of lucky people in the world, but how many get to wear my face every
I
day?
consider myself one of the lucky few.
You should be one of the lucky ones.
Hmm.
So, all right, brother, we're gonna get ready to close this up. We've got plenty of episodes to watch. Have the Here for the Real episodes dropped yet? I haven't looked yet.
Yeah. Yep, they're all there. So yeah, if on all your major podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, um, Google, wherever you listen to your podcasts, just search for Here for the Rolls for DND Podcast, Here for the Reels for the Movie Podcast, and you'll find us. And hey, if you feel so inclined, drop us a review.
Look, folks, you have no idea how important to folks like Jake and I, dropping reviews, going out, following, subscribing, doing all those things. He's got some pretty good TikToks too. He's got some pretty good TikToks.
We're trying to get there. TikTok is it's so much better for getting a lot of followers than Instagram is. We've learned.
Well, Instagram I feel like is stingy. Like have you noticed that like people are like, you want my Instagram follow? You need to earn that shit.
Yeah, that, and you got it's owned by Facebook, right? And they want your money. So you're not going to get seen like a ton unless you're already famous or an influencer, or two, you drop money on their ad promotion.
Which I've done.
Oh, I've done plenty of times. Yeah. Because they make it literally like you have to do it if you want to get some stuff seen. So,
where TikTok is like
TikTok's just a wild west of social media.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it hasn't been hit so much by the ads yet. It will, but yeah, it's really kind of just this crazy wonderland of everything. A lot of really bad and a lot of really good. But yeah, it's fun.
Now, make sure I don't get it confused. Is it because Jake plays the centaur because he plays Kenneth?
Yep.
Has anyone sent him a nice sweater vest yet?
No.
All right. So anyone who listens to this that knows how to crochet, send me a message or send Jake a message on Instagram. We'll find out what size that the other Jake is, and you need to knit him a sweater vest.
Man, that would be glorious.
If someone could do that for him, he needs a sweater vest.
My dad did get him a shirt that says Centaur, and it has a centaur on it, and it's awesome.
That's great. All right, brother. We're gonna get ready to close this up. Make sure, folks, you're checking out DM Jake Here for the Rolls on Instagram. I meant to ask you, the Facebook, like you have like 12 followers on a Facebook that says Here for
we don't really do much with the Facebook.
Okay, wanted to make sure. I still tagged the damn thing. Like I tagged it.
We just focus mainly on Instagram and TikTok right now.
So Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter are all here for the rolls. So you can find those guys over there. Jake is a responsive host, so if you send him a message, he will eventually get to you after he's created all forms of other multimedia for giant conglomerates. And
we're always happy to chat with send us a message on the Instagram. We're happy to chat and hang out.
So make sure you reach out to those guys. And as always, if you're enjoying what you're listening to here, follow us on Facebook, the Above the Bar Podcast, our parent network, Earplug Podcast Network, and then on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. All those are the Above the Bar Podcast. If you got that sticker and you want to get your stuff up on Sticker and a Cause, the Above the Bar Podcast at gmail.com. Make sure you send me a message. And I think I'm a pretty responsive host also. I'll respond to you too. So, but as we do on every episode, and don't log off after we're done, we got to talk for a couple of minutes. As we do on every episode, the guest gets the last word. So what's the last word, Jake?
Oh, man. Well, I think if you've ever been curious about playing D&D and you've got like some kids or you've got some friends that would be a good group, don't be afraid. Just jump in. There's so much info online to get you started, and it can be one of the most fun things to do with a group that you love. So just don't be afraid. Just hop in with both feet.
Alrighty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.